Hi, I'm Marlene. My son took the trip I planned for myself, my 1-week dream vacation to Europe, and gave it to his fiancée. Said I wouldn't be fun to travel with, that I should just rest. They posted photos, smiled for the world, while pretending I never existed in the first place. But what hurt more than being excluded was realizing they never saw me as someone who belonged. I paid for everything, I planned every detail, and still, they acted like it was theirs all along. How does a mother become invisible in her own family? And what do you do when the only way to be seen again is to walk away? The wooden box had been mine for over 20 years. Oak, worn at the corners, with tiny brass hinges that creaked when I opened it. It sat in the back of my closet, beneath a stack of old scarves and a folded Afghan from my mother. It wasn't a jewelry box or a keepsake for love letters, just paper, precious paper. I opened it that afternoon with a quiet sense of ceremony. I was alone, as usual. The house was silent, save for the ticking wall clock and a distant hum from the neighbor's lawnmower. My fingers brushed over the travel folder, gently lifting it as if it might crumble. Inside were the flight tickets I had booked 6 months earlier, the itinerary I'd meticulously printed and color-coded, and a small photograph of the Eiffel Tower torn from an old travel magazine. This wasn't just a trip. It was a promise to myself. A late-bloomed reward after years of putting others first, of shelving plans for someday. I'd worked for the court for over 30 years, raised a son alone after a painful divorce, and sacrificed the best years of my life for someone else's comfort. That spring, I had decided, enough. I would go to Europe. Alone, if necessary. I let out a soft breath as I traced the curve of the Eiffel Tower on the page. It looked smaller than I imagined, but perhaps that was because I had made it so grand in my mind. This was going to be my first real vacation. Not a rushed weekend in Austin, not a church retreat. My trip. Dinner that evening was simple, grilled salmon and steamed rice. I had set 2 extra plates out of habit. Travis and Zinnia arrived just after 6, bringing noise and the smell of Zinnia's rose-scented lotion. She hugged me tightly like she always did, head tilted, eyes bright, voice syrupy. "We brought wine," she chimed, handing me a bottle I'd never heard of. "Figured you'd want to toast your big year." Travis kissed my cheek. "Mom, you look good. Retirement suits you." We sat down to eat. The conversation bounced between their wedding plans, and some influencer Zinnia followed on TikTok. I nodded, smiled when needed, kept the rice warm. Then, halfway through dessert, Travis leaned back and looked at me with a seriousness that made my stomach tighten. "Mom, I had an idea. Hear me out," he said, setting down his fork. I glanced at him. "Okay." "So, you know that Europe trip you've been planning?" I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth. "Yes?" He chuckled, like this was all casual. "Zinnia and I were talking, and we thought maybe, instead of you going alone, you could gift it to us, like as a wedding present." I blinked. Zinnia jumped in, her voice soft. "It's such a thoughtful thing, Marlene, and honestly, you deserve a relaxing staycation. Maybe go up to the lake house or do a spa week. Something chill." They both smiled like they'd handed me a trophy. "I've been saving for this trip for 3 years," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I know," Travis said, nodding, "and we're so grateful. But it would mean the world to us. You always say family comes first." I felt my jaw tense. I couldn't find words. I just nodded, too tired to argue. After they left, I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, one hand still on my teacup. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe they were just young and thoughtless. Maybe they didn't mean it the way it came out. But something tightened in my chest, a quiet pang that wouldn't go away. That night, I took out my journal. I'd started writing again after retirement, mostly grocery lists and snippets of thoughts. But now, the words came freely. "They want my trip," I wrote. "The one thing I did for me." The next morning, I didn't mention it. I cooked, cleaned, called Rochelle to check on her dog's surgery. I folded laundry and stayed silent. It was easier than explaining why my heart felt bruised. But 3 days later, I was walking past the guest room when I heard Zinnia's voice through the door. She was on speakerphone. "We'll confirm the Paris hotel tomorrow after transferring the names," she said. Her tone was upbeat. I stopped mid-step. My hand gripped the hallway doorframe. My mouth went dry, but I said nothing. Something inside me whispered, "Check the booking." The glow from my laptop screen was the only light in the room. I'd been staring at the screen for several minutes, hand trembling over the mouse, cursor hovering above the inbox like it might bite me. Zinnia's voice looped in my head. Casual, careless. "We'll confirm the Paris hotel tomorrow after transferring the names." At first, I thought maybe she was talking about her own trip, some future vacation, maybe something her parents gifted them. But no, that wouldn't explain the way she'd said it. Like the transfer was already a given, like the tickets were already theirs. My stomach tightened as I clicked into the travel portal. I hadn't logged in since I booked everything. It took a moment to remember my password. And then it hit me. There it was. 2 passenger names, Travis B. Hollis and Zinnia Monroe. No mention of Marlene Hollis. No trace of me. I scrolled through the details, heart pounding. The seats were the same I'd reserved. Same hotel, same tours. Everything was identical, except the names. There was a note at the bottom. Passenger details updated per your request. I hadn't made any request. No call, no email, no chat. I sat there staring, breath shallow. The cursor blinked at me like a silent accusation. I grabbed my phone and called Travis. He picked up after a few rings, his tone light like we were talking about weekend brunch. "Hey Mom, what's up?" "I just checked the booking," I said. My voice was calm, too calm. "Why are your names on my trip?" A pause, just long enough to tell me he hadn't expected this so soon. Then a laugh. "Oh, that. Yeah, I figured I'd go ahead and do that to make things easier, less last-minute stress." "Easier for who?" "Come on, Mom. You really think you'd enjoy running around Europe? I mean, no offense, but you'd be exhausted after day 2. "No offense," I repeated. "You took my name off my tickets." "Zinnia and I talked about it. We thought it'd be a great honeymoon kind of thing. You always said family comes first, remember?" I was quiet. "You're always saying how tired you are, how peaceful it is to just stay home with your tea and a book," he continued. "Europe's not exactly restful. We'll enjoy it more, trust me." The silence grew heavier. "Don't be so dramatic, okay?" he added, his voice softening like he was doing me a favor. "We'll send photos." I ended the call without another word. I don't remember walking into the kitchen. I only know I ended up on the floor, back against the dishwasher, hands in my lap, staring at the same cabinets I'd opened 1,000 times. The house looked the same, but nothing felt familiar. That box in the closet, my someday box, I bought it on a whim from a flea market when I was still working full-time. I told myself I'd fill it with travel dreams. It sat untouched for years, waiting for the moment I could finally use it. Now they were using it for me. The next morning, Travis texted, "Just checking in. Hope you're not mad." I didn't respond. Instead, I sat at my desk and started backing up every receipt, confirmation, and reservation. I saved the PDF files to a separate folder labeled Original Booking, Marlene. I didn't know what I was going to do with them yet, but I wasn't about to let them disappear. Later that afternoon, while folding towels in the laundry room, my phone buzzed. Zinnia had posted a picture on social media. She was smiling, holding a passport and boarding pass close to her face, like it was a lottery ticket. Travis stood behind her, arm draped over her shoulder. The caption read, "Europe, here we come." I stood there, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the comment button. I could have written something. Could have said, "Glad you're enjoying the trip I planned." But I didn't. I set the phone down and walked away. I stared at the screen, heart clenched tighter than I cared to admit. Zinnia's latest post sat at the top of my feed. her signature grin, standing next to a mountain of luggage, holding 2 wine glasses like she'd just won a game show. Off to Europe. Couldn't be more grateful. No mention of who booked the flights, who mapped the itinerary, who worked extra hours for 3 straight years. Not a single word. I sat back, letting the silence press against my ribs. My thumb hovered over the screen. Not to comment, just to scroll. And there it was again. Her curated smile, the sparkling eyes, the perfect hair swept just slightly by a fake breeze. 6 months ago, we'd sat on my porch sipping mint tea. She was barefoot, polished toes resting on my outdoor ottoman like she'd always belonged there. We'd talked about books, relationships, retirement. She looked at me and said, "You're so independent. I hope to be like you when I'm older." I'd smiled, flattered, even a little proud. Now that same voice had maneuvered itself into the center of my lifelong dream. And I was the one being politely shown the door. I scrolled through more of her posts, all about Travis. So lucky to have a man who makes dreams come true. Can't wait to travel the world with this one. Travis made the dreams come true? The airline confirmation was in my name. The non-refundable tours were charged to my card. The walking shoes I'd bought 6 months ahead, sitting by my front door now, untouched. There was no trace of me in their version of this story. I didn't expect a parade, but erasure that I didn't see coming. I pulled up Travis's contact and dialed. Straight to voicemail, I texted, "Can we talk today?" An hour later, he replied, "In a meeting. Can we talk later?" We never did. I set the phone down and turned to my journal. The pages were starting to fill up faster these days. They smile at me, but take everything behind my back. The ink bled a little as I wrote. I flipped to a clean page and started listing things. First car, down payment, college tuition, rent after graduation. Grocery cards every Thanksgiving. Each item added fuel to the fire I didn't know I'd been stoking. I wasn't just losing a trip. I was watching a slow theft of identity, one smile at a time. I opened Zinnia's post again. Stared at it longer than I should have. I started typing a comment. "I hope you both enjoy what I built." Then I deleted it. Not because it wasn't true, but because the person I used to be, who stayed quiet to keep the peace, she was already on her way out. I closed the app and stared out the kitchen window. The backyard needed trimming. The bird bath was empty. The world outside moved like nothing had changed. But something in me had. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just showed up. It was late morning when I pulled into their driveway with a small box of garden tools Travis had asked about months ago. The sun was sharp against the windshield, the kind of Texas spring heat that settles in early and lingers. I knocked, and when no one answered, I let myself in with the spare key he hadn't remembered to ask for back. The box made a soft thud on the entryway table, but what caught my eye was the wall beside the stairs. A new set of framed photos had gone up. Shiny silver borders, sleek and modern. Right in the center, Travis and Zinnia, standing beneath a fake Eiffel Tower prop at a bridal expo, arms around each other like they'd already made it. The photo that used to be there, a candid from Travis's college graduation with me in the background, slightly off-center but smiling, it was gone. I didn't touch anything. I didn't say a word. I just turned, walked out, and closed the door quietly behind me. That afternoon, I was back in my kitchen when Zinnia knocked. I had just set a kettle on the stove. "I brought lavender tea," she said, holding up a delicate white tin like it was a peace offering. "And cookies from that little French place you like?" I motioned her in. She walked with that same graceful ease she always carried, like she'd already been welcomed, even when she hadn't. We sat at the table. She poured the tea. Her voice was soft. "You're such an inspiration to us, Marlene. Truly. The way you've lived, how you've handled everything on your own." I nodded, not quite smiling. She leaned forward slightly, dropping her voice like we were sharing something sacred. "I told Travis it's time we take the reins now. You've done your part. We want to build things in our way. Give you space to relax." The words landed like a velvet slap. You mean step aside? I said, quiet. Zinnia's eyes flickered. No, not like that. Just embrace the peace you deserve. She left 20 minutes later with an empty teacup and a half-finished cookie. I didn't wash the dishes. I went into the living room and stood there for a long while. Dust clung to the edges of my picture frames, the ones lining my shelves, photos of me and Travis at school functions, birthdays, a trip to Galveston when he was 10. I reached for one of the frames, flipped it over. A small sticky note was stuck to the back, in a handwriting that wasn't mine. Replace this with our Paris trip? I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just placed the photo face down on the side table and walked outside. The porch swing creaked as I sat down. The neighbor across the street waved while mowing. I waved back, lips pressed in a tight smile. They didn't just take the trip, I murmured to no one. They're trying to take my place. That evening, I poured myself a cup of decaf and sat at my computer. I logged into every single travel account, flights, hotels, local tour groups. I changed passwords, printed receipts, organized everything into a folder on my desktop labeled My Work. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but it was mine again. Before heading to bed, I picked up my phone and texted Travis one sentence. I noticed the new photo wall. Good to know where I stand. There was no reply. I opened a new message, started typing. I won't stay quiet much longer. Then I deleted it. Not because I changed my mind, but because I didn't need to say it. He would learn it soon enough. Rochelle stood in my hallway, arms folded, eyes scanning the blank space where the family photos used to hang. You took them down, she said quietly. I didn't look up from my tea. They didn't deserve to stay up. Her silence was heavy but approving. It was the first time I'd said it aloud, not just to myself in the dark or inside a journal page, and the words felt right, solid. Later that afternoon, I made a quick stop at the grocery store. Just milk and a few bananas, but it felt like walking through a gauntlet. A woman I hadn't seen in years, Sandra, used to work the PTA bake sales, stopped me near the produce aisle. I saw Zinnia's post. Paris, right? She said, bright-eyed. Isn't that your trip? I smiled politely, as if she hadn't just thrown a dart at my chest. Something like that. She nodded, oblivious. Well, they looked so excited. What a generous thing for you to do. I nodded again, tighter this time, and turned away before my mouth could betray me. By the time I reached my car, I felt it. This sick throb of public shame, like I was the last one to realize I'd been left out of the group photo. That evening, I drove across town to visit my cousin Lorna. She'd invited me for soup and ketchup. Her husband had just retired, and she wanted to talk about downsizing. It was safe. Or so I thought. Halfway through her ladling out second helpings of chicken stew, she said it. Zinnia and Travis must be so grateful you gave them that trip. It was a beautiful gesture. I froze, spoon midair. She didn't mean it with malice, just like Sandra hadn't, but it landed the same. An assumption spoken so casually, so confidently, that it rewrote reality without asking permission. I nodded, forcing the kind of smile I used to give judges when I knew I'd lost emotion before I ever opened my mouth. Even silence feels like complicity now, I thought later as I drove home, windows down to cut through the fog in my chest. I didn't sleep much that night. Around 2 a.m, I sat at my desk, pulled up my email, and typed out a letter to Travis. It was 3 paragraphs long, calm, precise, no yelling, just facts. The trip had been mine. The funds were mine. The planning, the vision, the intention, all mine. I stared at it, read it 3 times. Then I deleted the whole thing. In its place, I typed one sentence. This was never your trip to give away. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Next, I opened the travel portals again. Disabled his access to every reservation, every account. Changed passwords. I logged into my bank and flagged his card from the shared emergency line I'd foolishly never removed him from after college. Done. By morning, I'd slept maybe 90 minutes, but I felt strangely clear. I made oatmeal, fed the cat, washed my face, and then came the text. Zinnia. Of course. Travis said you're being distant. Is everything okay? I stared at the screen. My thumbs rested on the phone as I considered how much of the truth she actually wanted. I typed, I've given you both more than enough. Don't ask for more. I didn't add a period. I didn't soften it with a smiley or a heart. I put the phone down and walked to the kitchen window. Across the street, the neighbor's sprinklers clicked on. A bird fluttered out of the hydrangeas. The world kept spinning. But for once, I wasn't chasing it. I woke before the sun, my body still heavy with the exhaustion of what had been a sleepless night. But my mind was sharp, focused. I sat in the sunroom with a cup of black coffee, the only light coming from the screen of my laptop. It glowed like a truth waiting to be revealed. The folder I had titled My Work was already open. Every file neatly named. Every receipt, every booking confirmation, every timestamp, every tour itinerary I had curated like a gift to myself. I didn't pause. One by one I began. Click. Cancel hotel. Click. Refund request on rail passes. Click. Guided museum tour. Gone. With each cancellation, I felt something unclench inside me. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity. They took the joy, I whispered, not the ownership. Confirmation emails poured in like clockwork. Refunds where I could get them, losses where I couldn't. Didn't matter. I wasn't paying for their honeymoon fantasy. I moved slowly, deliberately. No noise, no announcements, no demands. Only a quiet reversal of what had been stolen. By mid-morning, it was done. The trip was mine again, even if I never set foot on the plane. I closed the laptop and poured a fresh cup of coffee. Outside, the wind had picked up. The neighbor's flag flapped against its pole, like it, too, was tired of pretending stillness was peace. At noon, my phone buzzed. Zinnia. A voicemail this time, high and breathless. Hi, Marlene. I think there's been a mistake with the travel stuff. Can you call me, please? I didn't. Then came a call from Travis. I watched the screen until it went dark. Another buzz. Then another. I turned the phone face down. Later that afternoon, I folded towels while the kettle boiled. I sat with the steam rising in the kitchen, letting it fill the space around me like armor. I thought about Travis at age 5, barefoot, sticky-fingered, tugging on my skirt at the grocery store. And at 10, arms crossed at the DMV, when I surprised him with his first state ID. At 19, home from college, with a chip on his shoulder and empty laundry bags. I thought of every time I stepped in, patched up, made excuses. I protected him more times than I could count. From the world, from himself. That ends today. That protection? It cost me pieces of myself. And for what? So he could smile next to Zinnia in a photo op built on my sacrifice? I stepped outside with my tea. The breeze was soft, the kind that grazes your arms and reminds you that you're still here, still standing. For the first time in weeks, I inhaled without a knot in my chest. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was air, and it was mine. As I leaned against the railing, my phone buzzed again. Travis's work number this time. Then, almost immediately, another call. Zinnia's mother. I didn't pick up. I watched the screen light up, then fade, then light up again. I turned the phone off and placed it in the drawer beside me. Let them sweat. Let them spin. Let them call every hotel in France if they wanted. What was mine, I took back. Quietly, fully. And I wasn't giving it away again. The call came in just after lunch. Rochelle's name lit up my screen, and her voice was tight the moment I answered. Did you see the video yet? My stomach flipped. What video? TikTok. Someone posted Travis and Zinnia at the airport. Marlene, Charles de Gaulle. They're in Paris. I didn't speak. I just walked to the living room, sat down, and opened the app. There it was. A shaky, grainy clip, maybe 10 seconds long, but clear enough to show the mess. Travis pacing in front of a hotel counter, running his hand through his hair, jaw tight. Zinnia's voice shrill and rising as she spoke to a woman in a navy blazer behind the desk. No, there has to be a reservation under Monroe. Maybe Hollis. We were told it was already confirmed. The woman shook her head, calm but firm. I'm sorry, but the booking was canceled 2 days ago. We sent multiple notices. We cannot check you in. Another clip. Zinnia near tears, Travis whispering something sharp, then her turning away from the camera, face flushed. I paused the video and let the silence settle. The ceramic edge of my teacup pressed against my hand, grounding me. I didn't smile, but I did feel something release, like a door finally swinging open in a house that had been locked too long. Rochelle sent me a screenshot next, a comment thread beneath the video already bubbling over. Who goes on a trip they didn't even plan? LMAO. Did they just assume someone else would pay? Then Rochelle posted a photo of my original itinerary, the one I'd printed and handwritten notes on. She captioned it simply, "For context, my friend planned this trip for herself. Guess someone else decided to help themselves." It caught fire. I didn't ask her to do it. I didn't need to. She knew what this was, what it had become. Within an hour, strangers started messaging me, most of them women, older, some with kids, some without. You deserved better. This hits too close to home. I hope they choke on the room service they didn't earn. I didn't respond. I read them, nodded to myself, and put the phone down. Later that evening, Travis texted, "Mom, this is out of control. Please fix it." I stared at the words for a while. The same phone that had stayed silent for days. The same silence that came after he stripped my name off a reservation without blinking. I typed back, "I already did." No greeting, no punctuation, nothing left to explain. About an hour after that, Zinnia posted a story. Just white text on a black background. Some people just want to tear others down. No gratitude left in this world. She didn't tag me, of course, but I wasn't stupid. I took a screenshot, opened her profile, and blocked her. Let her scream into her echo chamber. That night, the house was quiet. I sat in my robe with my feet tucked under a blanket, no TV on, just the low hum of the fridge in the kitchen. I thought of Travis's voice in that video, tight, defensive. I thought of Zinnia's smile twisting when things didn't go her way. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel vindicated, but I did feel done. And for the first time in months, that was enough. The drawer hadn't been opened in years. It stuck a little, the wood swollen from humidity and time. But once I tugged it loose, it slid open with a quiet sigh. Inside was everything I'd tucked away. Paper maps of cities I'd never stepped foot in, ticket stubs from the few places I had, and a faded postcard from my sister, mailed just months before her diagnosis. At the very top sat the hand-drawn itinerary I made when I first dared to plan the trip. My handwriting curved across each date, marking cafes I wanted to visit, museums I couldn't pronounce, and quiet churches I imagined sitting in. I was always the planner. I made things possible. Flipping through my old journal, I found an entry written in blue ink and tired script. When I finally go, I hope I feel proud, not invisible. I traced the sentence with my finger, then closed the book. I wasn't chasing pride anymore. I just didn't want to disappear. I opened my laptop and started again, not from a file labeled My Work, but from a fresh page, untouched. I searched Florence, not Paris. Something simpler, quieter. A place where I didn't have to compete with flashing lights or picture-perfect posts. I found a bed and breakfast with garden chairs and a room overlooking olive trees. No itinerary, just space. And I booked it. For one. Under my name. When the phone rang that evening, I let it buzz once before answering. "Mom," Travis started. His voice was low but not soft. "You've embarrassed us. Zinnia's parents are furious. They said people are commenting on their business page." I let him speak. "What you did, it wasn't fair. We didn't deserve that." I took a breath. "What I did," I said slowly, was stop letting myself be erased. There was silence. You made a choice. I made one too. I heard a sharp exhale on his end, but I didn't let it stop me. This trip was mine, Travis. It still is, and I'm taking it back. I hung up. Then, without hesitation, I deleted his contact from my phone. Not blocked, just gone. I walked to the bedroom, pulled my suitcase from under the bed, and began packing. Not with frustration or spite, but with care. I folded each item I loved, my linen dress, the blue scarf my sister gave me, the flats that molded to my feet just right. In the living room, I placed the dream box on the coffee table. I wrote a note on a yellow sticky and left it inside. Don't take what isn't yours. When morning came, Rochelle pulled up in her old Subaru. I wheeled my suitcase down the porch steps. She didn't ask questions, just popped the trunk and waited. I walked back to the front door one last time. My hand rested on the knob, but I didn't open it again. I locked the door behind me, keys jangling softly, and slipped them into my purse. I didn't glance back at the house. Not because I was angry, but because it no longer felt like the place where my story belonged. 36 hours later, I stood under a pale Tuscan sky. The morning was hushed, wrapped in the scent of blooming rosemary and fresh bread from a nearby kitchen window. Birds darted between olive branches that swayed gently beyond the garden wall of the B&B. This wasn't the view I'd planned for, but it was better. I sat on a wrought iron bench nestled in the gravel path beside the lemon trees, journal open on my lap. The air was still cool. I didn't write right away, just looked around, letting the stillness undo the tight coil that had lived in my chest for months. In the chapel near the piazza, I lit a candle and took a seat on a worn wooden pew. No ceremony, no prayer, just a moment, a pause. Later, I opened my journal and flipped through entries, some scribbled in haste, others written carefully with intent. One caught my eye, written in a shaky hand and highlighted with a line drawn twice beneath it. When I finally go, I hope I feel proud. Not invisible. I smiled. Not bitterly. Just soft. I had come here not to reclaim anything from them, but to return something to myself. My voice, my shape, my place in the frame. So many holidays where I stood behind the camera. So many birthdays where I smiled at gifts I never needed, just grateful they remembered. So many times I made myself small, just to keep the peace. I kept waiting for someone to choose me. Now I choose myself. That afternoon, back at the B&B, I checked my email. One new message. Luther. The subject line was blank. Inside. I saw what happened. You didn't deserve that. I should have said it sooner. I'm sorry, Mar. I didn't reply. But I read it twice. After dinner, I wandered along the Arno River, letting the breeze catch my scarf and pull loose strands of hair from my bun. I asked a kind passerby to take a photo of me, something I hadn't done in years. I sent it only to Rochelle. The caption was simple, finally in the frame. I didn't hear from Travis. Not that day, not the next. I saw Zinnia had unfollowed me on social media. That was her version of a door slam. I didn't knock. There was no apology coming, no reckoning I could force, and I realized I didn't need it. Closure isn't about who speaks last, it's about who finally stops waiting for the echo. On the plane ride home, I sat by the window. The clouds were thick and the coffee lukewarm, but my journal sat open beside me. I took out a pen and began a fresh list at the back. See Croatia, take a pottery class, never give away what I've earned without asking why. The flight attendant asked if I wanted anything else. I smiled and shook my head. When we touched down in Houston, the air felt heavier, but I didn't. And maybe, just maybe, the next time I pack a suitcase, I won't be carrying anyone else's expectations with me. Looking back, I've come to believe something simple. No one gets to decide your worth except you. It took me decades to understand that love given without respect is not love at all. If you're watching this and you've ever been overlooked, silenced, or made to feel like a supporting character in your own story, please hear this. You can step forward. You can reclaim your space. And you don't need anyone's permission to begin. Let me ask you, have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your dignity? What did you do? I'd love to hear your story. If this video touched something in your heart, drop a 1 in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. And if it didn't resonate with you, that's okay too. Let me know why and where you are in your own journey. If you'd like to hear more real stories like this, stories that speak to the heart and remind us we're not alone, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these voices alive.